Okay, I think we can get started. Welcome to today's session, our first of four on event management. My name is Kevin Wilson. I work for Q Data USA. I'm the Event Solutions or Extended Supply Chain Solutions Practice Lead and Senior SAP Solution Engineer. So today I'm going to take you through some of the cool stuff in event management, basically what everyone from an architecture perspective needs to know about event management, because it's a tool you put in your toolkit and you get to use it in your business processes out there, and I'll show you that coming up. So just a few things to get going. Throughout this webinar, feel free to put any questions in the sidebar of the GoToWebinar session, and we'll get to answer any of those questions come at the end of the session. Also, if you like what you hear over here and you want to see more of the same thing, then follow us on Twitter. We're using the hashtag QData_EM to flag all of our EM related stuff, so be sure to use that to go out there. Facebook, we have a specific page on event management, and I make sure that myself and our guys are updating useful OSS notes that are coming out there, and any tips and tricks that we come across, we put them out there. So that's a good source of information on event management too. LinkedIn, all of us folks are actually out there on LinkedIn, so you can see what we're up to and what we're doing. The blog qdatausa.wordpress.com also has a big session on event management. So we've got quite a lot of blogs out there on that, and we have a track and trace seminar coming up in March, on March 12th, and that's going to be out there on the WordPress blog over the weekend, so be sure to go out there and have a look at that. Like I said, this month is our EM webinar series month, so today I'm going to be exploring the possibilities of EM that it provides solution architects. Next week we'll go through our procurement process and innovative ways on how to go ahead and improve that procure-to-pay process. Then we'll move into the order-to-cash space, and we'll discuss that. Then transportation management, we'll show you how that's working with event management and how that fits in. If you would like to see this session again, just go to our website, qdatausa.com, click on resources and previously recorded webinars. That webinar should be up there by tomorrow. Also, if you'd like to just browse our upcoming webinars, you can see the ones that are coming up, the ones that I just mentioned. All right, so what are we going to cover today? We're going to run through a little bit of what is event management. If it's the first time you've seen it, then certainly need to run through what it's all about. Then what can it do for you at the end of the day too? So as a solution architect or enterprise architect out there, often the folks are coming there and giving you a problem or a scenario out there that you need to deal with, and you need to find the right tool to fit the job. Well, this is just one of those tools that you put in your back pocket and you can pull out if folks are looking for certain pieces of functionality. Then I have a few slides on walking through an actual EM process, but what I think I'll do, we'll take you through the system, and we'll show you a demo in the system. And then one or two slides on just what it takes to do an implementation on EM, and then we'll wrap up. So firstly, supply chain event management is an industry term coined even in the 1990s. SAP was a big part of that push, and SAP Event Management was born out of that, the needs coming out of the supply chain event management initiative. Basically what it is, it's SAP's implementation of supply chain event management. It came about in 2004, so it's been around for a long time now, 10 years of general availability. The first version actually showed up in 2000, but it was more of a custom version and generally available in 2004. It's SAP's standard tool to do the tracking and tracing, the monitoring of your business process. Okay. It measures the compliance of your business process plan and against the actual execution of that plan in order to uncover the exceptions in that particular plan. And if you use it smartly, you can also maybe uncover opportunities in your business process. It gives the visibility of your business process and your assets and the performance of your business process to anybody in your organization that you wish to share that with. All right, so the three of them, monitoring, measuring, and visibility, that's basically what it's giving to you. So again, from a solution architect perspective, anyone comes to you and says, I have a business process that's going from A all the way to Z. I need to give that visibility of what's going on in this business process. To some folks, it's an event management functionality. I need to track the exceptions that are occurring in this business process. So in other words, I plan out my tasks and activities, and then as and when they execute, I'd like to understand whether we're executing against that plan. That's an event management functionality. Okay. As deployment options on event management or of event management, you can deploy it on SCM, supply chain management. It's a standard module on supply chain management, and the vast majority of the folks that have implemented event management out there are running on SCM, generally as a standalone solution. So if you have like an APO server too, they generally have APO on a separate server from event management. Then when SAP saw that the value of SAP Event Management wasn't only in the supply chain module, and it could be applied to any business process out there, they made it a standalone app. So now it's an add-on piece, and it's been there for quite some time now. I think 2008 was when they brought that one out. So now it's an add-on component. So in other words, if you've got ERP6, a certain enhancement pack, I think it's 3 or 4, then you can add event management as an add-on to that one. So in other words, you can have event management functionality right on your ERP system. You can do the same for TM, supply network collaboration, and auto ID infrastructure. One more thing to mention, the OER, SAP Object Event Repository, is basically built on top of the EM platform. So OER is just an extension of EM functionality. They had some number range management functionality and a few other little things, and provide you some additional standard content to that. But the core functionality of OER is actually just EM functionality. Okay. What are the reasons that folks are choosing to go down the SAP Event Management way? Risk mitigation, right? So from a regulatory perspective, we see in the pharmaceutical industry, they've forced down certain paths from a serialization perspective or a batch management perspective. They need to be able to recall products, and they need to understand, the scope of issues out there. They need to make sure that temperatures are being adhered to as it flows through the supply chain and so forth. Well, event management or OER is the tool in order to do that management and the monitoring of those. Real-time exception notification, right? So in today's age, we need sort of that instant gratification. So we need to be able to react to issues in our supply chain as and when they occur. So prior to affecting our supply chain, prior to affecting our customer, we need to know about certain issues, and then we can actually react to those and potentially take some corrective action to get it back on track again. That's where we want to go to. We want to increase customer satisfaction, just in the scenario that I mentioned, right? So if we can stop an issue from actually presenting itself to the customer, then we improve that customer satisfaction over time. We can reduce costs because we're minimizing the uncertainties, right? So if you can analyze your business processes from a whole to say, this is how we execute, we can start to manipulate that plan so that we know exactly how and when we should be executing stuff, and then as we measure against that, we can see how effectively we are executing towards that plan. So if we're starting to move towards the 95, 98% hit rate with our plan, then we know for sure how our processes are going to manage going forward. We were just at a client the other day, and they had a 0% compliance to their plan, right? So you can understand the issues there. No one trusted the business process whatsoever, so everybody was looking into every aspect of the business process, top to down, top to bottom. So you can imagine how inefficient that was. We want to reduce the time to action, which is basically uncovering those exceptions early, taking corrective action, and making the time between those 2 points as small as possible. Transparency is another one. So this is our visibility piece that we refer to. Generally in SAP, it's a transaction-based system, it's a master database system, but with those transactions, it's only the folks that are involved in those particular transactions that have the authorizations, or even the inclination just to run those transactions, right? So a buyer may run ME21, ME22 in, but the procurement manager, may not be running any of those transactions and can see what's going on. The exception monitoring that's available standard within SAP, for example, again, maybe run by the MRP controllers, but not by management, and certainly not by the sales order, the vice president of sales, as an example. What we do with event management is you bring up the visibility of my order to cash piece, which may have a procurement function in the middle of it if we're doing sort of a drop ship type order, and we're giving a purchase order to a supplier to say, hey, ship it to my customer. Our salespeople would certainly have an interest to see, that purchase order has been created on time, that the supplier is shipping what they want on time, and so forth. So let's give that visibility back to the customer, but via the sales rep. Right? That's an important piece. Analytics. How well are we actually performing our business process? So let's put down some KPIs. Let's understand, as a total percentage of sales orders that we generate, how many of our orders are actually going through a credit hold? How many orders are going through a delivery block? How many times are we actually touching an order as it goes through the sales order? How long is it taking from order to cash? How long does it take from when the time that this order is available for a delivery to be created to when the delivery is actually created? So all of these are KPIs that are embedded within our business process, but we don't have the data or the data is too hard to extract in order to actually produce those KPIs. With event management, this is actually a pretty trivial task. What are the components of SAP Event Management? The first one is one of the main benefits of event management. It's integrated with the SAP Business Suite. So they give you what they call the application system interface, the application interface, which is a basis plugin that goes on your ECC system, as an example. It goes on your SCM system. And in that information, that plugin over there provides you with the function modules and the configuration ability to extract the plan out of that system, if that's where the plan is coming from. It gives you the ability to extract events out of that system, if that's where it's coming from. So they give you standard extractions for a lot of the main business objects, like sales order, purchase order, production order, invoice, and all of that good stuff. We get that basically for free. Then obviously we have the event management system, which is the system that we use to store our events. So that's our event repository, and it's the one that provides that rule-based engine to say, when I receive an event, what do I need to do now? So how do I react to this? So should I update the status of my business process? Should I change the value that I've stored in the business process? Should I send someone an email because now I've determined that the business process is out of sync with the plan? That's what event management's all about there. It also has the configurable UI. So, I'll be able to show you that a little bit later, but without any coding, you can actually develop the reports that we give the visibility to the business processes, to the folks out there, and you link those to roles and authorizations, and those people that have the authorization can then run those user interface from the web. So that's a pretty big thing. We also get some strong integration, also just through configuration with BW, so we can extract all the information into basically 3 cubes on the BW side that contains all the EM related information, and we only extract the information that we need, to go to BW. The last component we're speaking about is the event senders. So, if your system that's generating the events isn't an SAP system, which would then use the application interface, if it's a third-party one, then those are also folks that we can pull into the EM system. And the way that we can do that is through any one of these interface options, right? So if we have an RFC type adapter, we can just call the BAPI directly to create the events or create the event handler within event management. If they have the ability to create an IDOC, then we can create an IDOC, come in through, potentially PI, post that IDOC into event management, create the events for us. On the object event repository, we could get an EPCIS compliant XML message that we would run that through PI, and then PI would post the event into event management. Okay. It will do that through that web service. There's sort of a diagram over here, quite technical, but we've got quite a bit of documentation on how the web services work. But EM is fully enabled in the web service environment, and most specifically for the object event repository and the serialization aspect of things, because it's a fully compliant, EPCIS compliant system. So that's an electronic product code information system, is what that stands for. All right, let's understand a little bit more terminology from a business process perspective. We refer to that as an event handler. An event handler is the object in event management that relates to the business process, so that at a trackable point. So as an example, if I want to track my sales orders, but I need to go down to the line item, I would have an event handler at the line item level to reflect all the data and the status and the events that need to occur for that particular line item. All right. It includes tracking IDs, and tracking IDs are just elements against which we post an event, right? So tracking ID for a sales order line item would be the sales order number itself and the sales order number together with the line item. If we have events just occurring at the line item level, then that's the tracking ID I'd use. Parameters are just attributes of my business process, so that would be material number, the sales rep, the distribution channel, sales order number, maybe the ship to address, the delivery date, expected delivery date, and so forth. One of the key things is the plan that we store against the event handler. So this particular line item is supposed to be completed by this date and time in order to be delivered by this date and time, so that we can invoice it at this date and time. So all of those dates and times are stored against the event handler. Together with that, not only do we have the ability to capture expected events against the date and time, but we can also ensure that a particular partner executes a step. We can also ensure that a particular location is adhered to. Right? So we want to ship it out of this warehouse for this particular customer, and when we actually get the execution, it could be shipped out of a different warehouse, which in itself is an exception for us. The last thing it can do is measurements. We can make sure that certain measurements are adhered to during the process. Measurements could be a weight, it could be a temperature. So we say, the plan for this is to be anything between 3 and 8 degrees. And if it's outside of 3 and 8 degrees, then we have an exception. Okay. Actually, more in the cold chain industry, it's more like 2 to 8 degrees. All right. So, and we have the ability, if I look at the actual events that are posted, the digital signature, we can actually add attachments to the event and maybe capture that proof of delivery signature and list that against our event handler. So understanding a little bit more about events, we have 2 types of events actually in event management. Those that that you expect to happen, which is our plan, and then those that actually happen, which is the actual events coming through. So that's our execution of our plan that's going on. If I break those down, depending on the timing of when the actual events come in, we have 4 different scenarios that could work out for us. If we have a planned window of an event needs to arrive between 8 and 10 in the morning, and the actual event arrives between 8 and 10 in the morning, we just term that's a regular event. We just capture the fact of that in the event management, and we move along, wait for the next event. If the event arrives before 8 o'clock, it's deemed an early event, and if it arrives after 10 o'clock, it's a late event. We can choose within our rule set what we need to do in either of those instances, if anything. Right? Sometimes we say if it's early, that's fine. If it's late, that's fine. We just need it for reporting purposes. But other folks, if it arrives late, then let's go and create a workflow and get some corrective action started. Unexpected event is one that doesn't have a plan. We don't plan on it occurring in our business process, but it did occur, right? So when we create an order to cash scenario out there, we don't plan to go on a credit hold, as an example. But you can create an order and it will go on a credit hold, right? So that's an unexpected event. We don't plan for it, but it happens, so we need to react to it. Well, again, we could potentially trigger off an exception, an alert to someone, send an email, create a workflow to have it addressed. Or again, we may be just capturing that fact in order to make it visible to other folks. So we can change the status to say credit holders on. Now anybody that's searching on on the web out there can have a look at all the sales orders, and they can go down that column and they can see all the orders that are on credit hold right now, which is why we haven't created the deliveries for these, as an example. Or incompletion is on, or the delivery block is on, and obviously a combination of those. The last group over here is the unreported event, all right? So this is what we have is when we have the plan and comes and goes and we didn't get any actual event for this. So again, this is something that we can react to. Event management has an overdue monitor. It's just looking for the plan, and when the plan is overdue, it goes and executes a set of rules that we define, and we say what needs to happen. Okay, so that's pretty cool on that system. So from a what comes pre-delivered perspective for event management, SAP does deliver a lot of content. The first thing that and we call that visibility processes that they give us. So for certain business processes, they've given us these components, out of the box. We need to go and tweak those so that they work in our environment, but at least they've given us a sort of a leg up in getting things done. So for example, in the procure to pay process, they would give us the configuration and the development in order to extract purchase order create, purchase order change, goods receipt or purchase order acknowledgement, invoice receipt, invoice paid, all of those as steps in our procure to pay process. We get those events, we get the event handlers, we get the statuses, we get the rule sets, so we get all of that information. Some of the visibility processes also provide a BI interface or a PI content, but basically they're very similar. So if there's not one available for a particular visibility process that you want to invoke, then you can always copy one of the other ones that's come there and then adapt it to your scenario. Each one of the visibility processes come with documentation. So they come with a scenario description that just says, these are the transactions that we're covering over here, and this is how you basically go ahead and test this thing. So you can use that as a going-in position. The configuration guide just says, execute this piece of configuration on your side once you've implemented the visibility process in order to get it working in your environment. Because there's certain things they can't pre-deliver. It's specific to your system, so they show you how to go about enabling that visibility process. A few examples of what the visibility processes are right now. Procurement, fulfillment, production orders, inbound, outbound delivery, transportation, rail car, On the auto ID side, both outbound, inbound, RTIs, returnable transport items. The product tracking and authentication is an OER scenario. Responsive replenishment, purchase orders in the SNC, and TM has got freight order, freight units, instructions. There's some big push in the TM space, and we'll go into that now, but they are moving more and more stuff into event management. They provided a few more visibility processes in this last EM release. We're up to 9.1 now, so SAP is spending some time on TM, and they're certainly using the EM functionality on top of that. EM9 was released in May last year. It's got some geo-tracking functionality, so the geo-map functionality, if you look at the little picture on the top right, that's a picture of the new GUI, or the new web UI. So you can plug in your Google map over there, and you can see the actual status of your business process, as long as you've put geo coordinates across each one of the events that are actually coming in. So it's pretty cool. We implemented that down in Australia for a truck, on the different trucks, and it certainly did highlight the route that these folks were taking, and it was not compliant to the plan. Let's just put it that way. Web UI changes during this release was large. It's a brand new map using the floor plan manager. It's definitely worthwhile. So this SAP EM 7 version is still using the old Web DIM Pro. This one is using the floor plan manager. You need to get on 9.0 as quickly as possible. It's a much better user interface. The demo that I'll show you now is actually on the 7 interface, and it's a bit clunky compared to the 9.1. Item serialization and secure distribution of pharma products is a scenario that was then delivered at that stage too. So just a quick slide on transportation management. So TM itself, covers 4 different processes: order management, freight planning, the execution, and freight settlement. It's basically the reason of existence for TM. So if you've got product to move, then you use TM to basically manage the transport of those goods to wherever they need to go. But the freight execution piece is actually heavily weighted in the EM side of things, right? So tight integration, we did the freight execution tracking and event notification all within the EM tool. So if through our order management, freight planning, and tendering, we've got a particular freight order with freight units on them that need to go through, be delivered from A to B to C to D by certain groups, the event management will start to receive those events in to say, all right, we've departed this particular location over here, then we've arrived at this customer, now we're unloading, now we're loading, and we're now departing. All of that information comes through in event management and visible in transportation management. It is pretty cool. One slide on the object event repository. As I mentioned, it is built on top of the EM piece, and its sole purpose really is that serialized track and trace piece, right? So authentication is built in there. The security and authentication is done through those web services, so you can actually expose those web services to external parties so that they can be a part of your supply chain from a serialization perspective. So they can query our database, our OER, with a particular serial number to determine whether this is valid or not. So they can determine authenticity, by using that web service call. Also, if they're picking up a product or executing a transaction, an EPCIS compliant transaction, so we're selling product from one person to another. To record that, they can also pass in a web service so we can record the exchange of ownership of that particular serialized product. So an overview of EM use cases. These are just some of the ones that we've done. So order to cash is a very popular one, done it several times. Production order process is again something that's pretty popular. Not as much as order to cash or the procurement process. So the procure to pay process. There's been quite a few implementations of that too, and it's also quite a hot one. Returnable transport items. So what we're talking about there is following a drum around the process. You fill the drum, You transport the drum, you unfill it, you put the empty somewhere, and then you send the empty back to the original person who filled the drum. They fill it again, send it back to you, and the process continues. Ocean freight, supply chain, normal functionality, track and trace is there. Transportation management is another big one, definitely picking up some steam now because of SAP's push in that space. I have one slide here for the architects again. The comparison between EM and business process management, EM and workflow have been thrown out there. EM and there's quite a lot of things out there. So on SCN, I've written quite a few articles on EM as it's compared to the different tools that SAP throw at us and just make our job a little bit more difficult when they make tools that sort of sound like they overlap with each other. But here's one. So for example, business process management. It's more aligned with the cross-component BPM, which is the PI sort of workflow piece, all business workflow. That's where the BPM piece. So BPM is sort of the Java-enabled CCPPM, BPM. And you'd use a business workflow if, and this is just rule of thumb right now, you use SAP business workflow if you want to automate a business process within one SAP system. So if you've got ECC and you want to automate your order to cash system there for whatever reason, or you want to notify folks on credit blocks or incompletions, then business workflow is the tool for that. CCPPM, if you have several SAP systems, so you've got CRM, you've got SCM and ECC coming together, and you need that as a business process working together, then use the PI workflow engine for that. BPM, its place in world is if you've got different systems that are outside of SAP, so then you need to string basically web services together, and you use the BPM tool in order to do that. EM fits a completely different space. It's a tool that monitoring those business processes. It generally doesn't drive a business process. You can use it to trigger, another business process. So if we get an exception, we can trigger a business process to go ahead and, perform the corrective action to fix that business process. But it's more the monitoring and providing a visibility tool, status management, exception management tool. It's not one to drive a business process. All right. What can SAP EM do for you? So let's go. It's just a few slides over here, and then we'll see if we can get into a demo. Exception management. So the first thing that we want to do is to be able to manage our business processes by exception. The last thing we need to do is to manage each and every order that's flowing through our order to cash cycle or our purchase order through all of them. We don't need to manhandle each one of them. If they're going according to the plan, just let them flow through the system. The system, SAP is designed to execute these things automatically and move the process along. It's designed that way. But there's a caveat to that. Your master data has to be accurate because SAP is, again, designed to be automated, but it's based on good master data driving that. So if you need to generate a purchase order because you don't have enough material, you've reached your safety stock level, well, that safety stock level better be accurate for that particular material. The lead time for the supplier that's going to provide that material need to be accurate master data so that you can cut the PO at the right time so you can get the product into the office, into the warehouse at the right time. So if that information is not accurate, how can you do exception management? So for example, you say, well, the PO didn't get there on time, or we didn't create the PO on time, or we didn't receive enough product, we ran out of product. Well, you can't manage by exception when you're having those exceptions all the time because the data is incorrect. So we often say to event for those folks that are interested in implementing event management, there's the two components. There's the visibility and the exception management. If you trust the master data that you have in your system, i.e. you trust your business process and the data that's behind it, go ahead. Let's go ahead and design and put a solution in place that gives you your exception management and you can go forward. If not, let's go ahead and put an EM to give you the visibility as to what's happening in your business process, and maybe you can figure out where the areas are that are not performing well from a master data perspective, and we can fix that. Because from a visibility perspective, a delivery being created is a delivery being created. When it gets PGI'd is when it gets PGI'd. There's no master data or anything involved with that. That's just the date and time that that particular activity occurred, and this person executed it, and this is where they executed it. That's all just, that's black and white stuff. But you can take that and give that visibility to someone else. But what we can't do is that if, for example, we got a bad master data, we can't say this is when the delivery should have occurred, this is when it did occur, so therefore we have an exception. Because if that original plan, date, and time was wrong, then we can't go there. Okay. Status management. So status management is provided through our visibility of our business process, because as the events come into the system, we would analyze that event, base it against the plan, and then set a status accordingly. All right. If there is no plan, again, we could just set the status, right? So it went on a credit hold. You know, we didn't plan on it going from a credit hold, but it is on a credit hold, and I'll show you that now in the system. Performance monitoring. So when we get it out into a BW world for analytical reporting purposes, we can answer the questions like, how well have my processes been performing? Okay. From an operational perspective, i.e. from a day-to-day, like what's going on right now, how is my process performing right now? Right? That's done in the EM system. That's not done in the BW system. That's when the customer phones you and says, hey, order number 123, what's going on there? The rep fires up 123 in the event management system, and it says, sir, your order's being processed right now by our back office staff. He doesn't need to tell him all the details, but he would be able to see there, for example, the order's incomplete, it's on a delivery block, it's a credit hold, so no delivery processing is happening. But if he sees, for example, that it's incomplete, he can say, sir, there's just a few bit of more information that I need from you, so if you don't mind just telling me this information and this information, we can maybe move your order along a little bit. Okay. So 3 little things from a visibility perspective. The first one is that the EM UI itself. So it can either be the standard web UI, which I'll show you, or a custom EM report. We've had quite a few customers that they have a certain look and feel for their customer service reps, as an example, and they want to provide that same look and feel for them for their order report. So the little red square there next to WeMo is an Adobe Flex application that just reads event management functionality, as an example. WeMo is, where is my order? That's a report they gave to the rep to give them statuses on their sales orders, order to cash process. From an analytics perspective, that's just giving them access to BW reports to give them that KPI visibility, you know, average cycle duration, percentage on time versus late, deviations as a percentage of the total count, those type of analytics. Then the last visibility is the alert workflow inbox. So any exceptions that we raise, there's tight integration between EM and the alert framework or the workflow piece, and we would raise an exception and create the exception process in that space. All right, now's the fun part. Let's see if we can get the system going over here. Just log into our SAP system. So I've created a little order to cash application over here just in order to, well, basically train folks up on event management. So we just have a standalone application. So I'm going to go ahead and basically create a brand new order over here, simulate that. All right, so order number 523 is saved. If I go and have a look at that, remember that I said, you know, typically we want to manage our business process at a line item level. I clicked on the line item. This is my event handler. So I'm in event management right now. I've seen, for example, here's my order create event. This is my planned event at date and time, so it happened this very second. I expect my order to be completed in 2 hours' time. So that's my service level that I've put for my back office team to say you need to complete this order in that amount of time. So that's the little yellow triangle that says I'm an expected event, I'm a milestone out there. That milestone hasn't come and gone yet, so I'm still good to go. And I've received an event order incomplete because my order is incomplete right now. If I go to my status page over here, what I can see is the different status areas that you break up your statuses into the different areas, because you can have different statuses for each of these areas at one point in time. So I have an order status, for example. I have a blocked status, I have a delivery status, an invoice, and a POD status, all for the same order, right? Obviously, we've got no delivery right now, no invoice and no POD, and blocked, it is not blocked right now. But right now, my order process is showing that it's incomplete. All right. So if I go back to this one and I hit, let's block this delivery. And then let's go and select that line item, display the event handler, and have a look at my status detail. So now my block status is showing that I'm blocked. Okay. So anybody that's searching for this particular sales order, or even potentially just show me all my blocked orders, this particular sales order would pop up as blocked. Let's go and unblock it, and we can see how it actually just goes. Now it's no longer blocked. So it's basically instantaneous. All of the execution is actually happening in the update task, so it doesn't take away any performance from your order entry screen. It's done in an update task, which is a good thing. So let me move this order to a ready status. And let me go ahead and create a delivery for this particular order. Okay. So now you can see, for example, over here, first of all, that I did was the order is now complete. Not that it's been delivered, the order is now complete, so it's ready to be delivered. And here's my delivery being created. All right. I'll show you one more thing before I show you the web UI. If I go change this delivery, let's change it to shipped status. So now I'm in a totally different document to my sales order, but I'm still linked to the sales order, right? Because now I went and changed the delivery document. But it still had an impact. I can see the events coming through over here telling me that the delivery was created for this particular sales order. And there I am. So if I had to look at this particular one, I'm shipped. There's no block status and the order's complete, but I don't have an invoice. So if I display the delivery, I just do this. Let me create that invoice. Create an invoice. Display that one. I can see I got an invoice created, one over here, and my status over here is now created. So as things move forward, now each one of these events could have been set as an expected event to say, once my delivery is shipped, then I know that I must invoice the order, by midnight that night. So when I get the ship message, I can go ahead and put the plan together for when the invoice needs to be created. So let me go out to my web UI, and I think let's just change to 523 is the order that we were looking at. Was it 523? It was 523. Have a look. There we go. So all of our information comes through over here. There's my events that came through. Just have a Nothing exciting happening there. Okay, that's about it on that particular view. I did want to show you one more thing. Over here, I'll show you a product hierarchy. So we have the ability to have a hierarchical display within event management. It's particularly prevalent in the serialization world, where you have the different aggregation of serialized items. Needs to be tracked, especially from here's my box and these are all my serial items within this particular box. So you'll get a UPC code or a GTIN code for a particular box, and then you get the codes for the serialized items that are tracked within that particular one. So I just wanted to show you an example over here. If we've got a hierarchy, and if I choose my highest level over here, I've got a wheel set, and I've got two wheels underneath it, a front wheel and a rear wheel. So if I look at the front wheel over here, it's got spokes in the bottom of it. So it's just a silly little example. And then we've got the rear view with, again, spokes in the piece. Each one of those, showing these are event handlers. At the end of the day, when you click on the event handler detail, you can see all of the parameters for that particular event handler, as well as any events that took place on that particular event handler, and you can browse that way. So that's just a pretty cool little functionality. On the EM90 functionality, again, this is all a lot friendlier than what you see over here, but it's still doable, it's still workable. Okay. So I'm going to just fly through this sample process because we've shown most of the stuff and how it works in the event management system itself. But just suffice to say, if we go through a business process, when we define a business process up front, we want to extract the plan, send it to event management. That plan occurs or includes all of the events that need to occur as and when we understand when they should occur, because some events we only understand when they should occur once other events have occurred, right? So you need to make sure that you're creating those expected events as and when you know that when they should be occurring. Then we start to receive the events from the application system, and as and when we receive it, we react to it. So for example, here's an example. We had a specific expected event that came and it went, but we didn't receive that event. So again, we would trigger that as an unreported event, and we would flag someone to go and fix it. This particular one is a late event. We received it after the time. Again, we can trigger an alert and someone can fix it. Here we received a delay event. Obviously, it's not expected to be delayed, so we again react to it and we go through that. The last one is an example of receiving an event, but the wrong person performed the task for that particular event. Again, you can track it to that level and go from there. All of this information, as it's been captured in EM, we provide the visibility through that web UI to the folks. And there was no coding done in that web UI that was shown. That was all pure configuration. Also with that, we have the BW extraction, and we can have the folks having visibility through the BW reporting tool. All right, from an implementation perspective, what it is that you need to do in your application system is you need to set up the communication with event management. We need to implement the baddies that are integrated with on ECC as an example that talk to EM. We need to define the event management system and point it to the communication that we've set up from an RFC perspective. Then we need to configure business process types, application object types, and event types. Those are the three pieces from an EM perspective on an application system. And that's when I mentioned your visibility processes deliver a lot of these things to you. In my custom scenario, I had to go and develop all of those from scratch because none of it was delivered. Then when we're in the ECC type system, we need to code the relevance function. So the relevance function says only send this information to EM if we want to track it. Right? So you could potentially say, I only want to look at purchase orders of this PO type. Well, that's my relevance piece. So when the purchase order gets saved, it checks, is it this type? Yes. Okay, let's send the information to the EM. If it's not, stop. My extraction functions is the collecting of all the information. So once it's determined to be relevant, let's go and extract the data out of ECC that I need to send to EM. Because understand that EM is a dumb system. It has no data itself. You need to pass it the data in order to show it on the screen. Okay. And then all of the others are extractive piece functionality. On the SCM side, we talk about now we have to set up communication with the ECC system or any other application system that we're dealing with. We define them as application systems, and then we start to configure. And for the most part, it's just configuring. We'll code a little bit on the rule set activity piece. If we don't find a standard activity that SAP's provided to do the job we need, then we may go ahead and develop it. But to be honest, often, for the most part, the standard stuff that's delivered, you can manipulate those in enough way from a configuration perspective to get what you want out of it. We've got 6 or 7 minutes left. A typical project team, at least one EM architect, solution architect out there to do the design. Then we move over to the execution phase. So we need, again, an EM person, but more maybe from a functional perspective to configure that. And certainly the developer needs to understand EM functionality too and potentially do some of that config, because with EM, the configuration and the development very tightly close to each other. You can't do one without the other. From a BI perspective, obviously you need a BI type person, and then the EM person can help extract the data, but they typically don't know the BI functionality. If you choose to go down a custom UI piece, then obviously you need the developer on that space, and the EM functional expert can show them how to extract the data out of EM, and your project manager. I spoke a little bit about this, well, I inferred to this a little earlier in terms of if you don't have a good grasp on your business process data, or don't trust the data that's in your system, you're having data integrity issues, then based on our maturity quadrant, you would be falling in quadrant number 1. If your data's okay in the system from a master data perspective, but all the rules that you're performing in your business process are outside of the system, so you dump it to Excel, you massage the data, you move it back into SAP, and then you create the orders based off that. Well, when the rules aren't in the system, then again, we battle with with the maturity of the business process. And from an event management perspective, if you're in one of those 2 categories, we can really only give you event management from a visibility perspective. Once you've got good data and once you've got the rules of your business processes working in SAP and not in an external system, then we move into quadrant 3 and 4, where we're actually using the system the way it's intended to be used. And when you're in 4, then you start to say, well, how can I further use some of the extended supply chain functionality in order to get some real business value out of what we're using. So how do we go about leveraging the good stuff that we've got in the system? So if you're in 3 and 4, then absolutely use event management for exception management at that point in time. So you'll be running a clean shop in that world. All right. If we were to wrap up, SAP Event Management is a tool to monitor the status of your business process at an instance level. We're able to uncover exceptions in the execution of a business process against the plan, and it's the catalyst for understanding how your business process is performing over time. It's also the repository of events, allowing the integration into your standard business process. Exception management plus status management plus performance monitoring and visibility leads to that business improvement and real value. And that's really what event management is providing for you. I mentioned some of these a little earlier, but let's just go through some of them where event management's been used very effectively to create some real good business value. Capital prompt payments, it allows for the payment of POs within the terms. that company realized over a $20 million annually benefit because they were able to pay their POs earlier and get those term benefits. Electronic sample tracking, so sensitive products were moved to customers to test, prior to their release. They ensured through event management that those products were being returned timely and didn't make their way onto eBay. Inbound, outbound, carrier status notification, all at the same company. We worked with their architect. Once they got to understand that this is a tool that they can use, they just keep on rolling out EM functionality to the different business processes. It's just a tool in their toolkit. They did a good job. A large movie studio, procure-to-pay exceptions. They thought their procure-to-pay process was pretty good, and they only had an EDI issue. When we went live, they had to switch off the exception management because they were being spammed. Everything was coming in with exceptions. Very good information to know. Eclipse Aviation, where is my plane? The executive just wanted to know. I'm building planes, and we've got 7 warehouses out there. In which plane is number 1, 2, 3? It's funny how they didn't know that. It was a 2-day exercise, and we had that visibility for him. Inside, HD Supply, ASICS, amongst others subsequently. Where is my order? So from an order-to-cash perspective, those sales reps were using Wemo to determine and answer questions based on from the customers around what the status of the orders are. HD Supply now taking their app mobile so that the reps that are on the road can just look at a little red, yellow, green type dashboard when they're getting close to their customer. This is the status of your order right now. CPO, Linfox, Encore, we talk about transportation management over here. So these are folks that are either in the rail industry or just moving on the trucks, doing some good stuff there on the event management and giving the visibility of their transportation processes. All right, let's wrap it up. So if you need any more information, we have some decent stuff out there on qdatausa.com. We have more specific stuff on event management out at our WordPress blog, so qdatausa.wordpress.com. If you feel inclined, I have a book on event management, so I do know a little bit about the topic. You can get that on Amazon, or you can go to Genie Press, the publisher, and get it from there. Event management on Facebook, there's a specific page, and as I mentioned, we get our guys to actually put some of the stuff out there, so that's good. If anything we've said today, resonates with you and you want to go further, we help the guys make this decision because this is a little known module, even though it's 10 years old now. So people are hesitant to even move forward with something they haven't heard about. So we help them with that, and we do that through basically a scoping assessment. We come on site for a week, we give you an overview, we understand your requirements. At the end of the day, we take that, and if it isn't an EM type requirement, then we go ahead and we give you that design. We are solution architects after all, so if it requires something else, if it's workflow or something completely different, we'll give you that heads up. We don't drive you down EM, we don't get money if you buy EM or not. So we provide that high-level design and give you that roadmap towards this. If you want to implement, this is what it will take, and this is the budget. So we use that for then budgetary purposes. So that's what we do from a scoping perspective. So we help you out with that, and if you like what you see there, then we move forward. Also, we put you in that implementation quality. We assess the information that's in your system, and we put you in one of those quadrants just so that you can understand what it is it's going to take to provide the functionality that you're looking for. All right, let's wrap it up. I'll have a quick look to see if there's any questions. If there aren't any questions, then we will take leave. All right, I don't see any questions over there. So if there's nothing more, then I'm going to thank you for your time. I do appreciate taking an hour out of your day. And hopefully we'll see you next week when we go through, I think it's the procure to pay stuff. All right, thank you.